I was gonna do it when I was dead, but you know, I just turned 70 and I'm in the kill zone, you know, so anything can happen at any time, man. And so what I wanted to do is kind of let you know about the backstory of how I got to where I am today and what the circuitous route it took to get to that place. I was born here in South Central, 36 in San Pedro. You know, when you're kind of giving your street cred to other people, they go, "Oh yeah, what part of South Central are you from?" 36 in San Pedro. Oh, okay. You know, that kind of cuts through all this. Because when I first grew up there, it was an all-black neighborhood. It was 90-some% black, few Mexicans, and 2 lost white guys wandering around. I don't know where the hell they were. And it was a tough area. That it was made a little bit safer for me because my dad was a policeman, LAPD, 30 years, and so thank you. And then he got me. So I always get this question. Well, weren't you afraid that the cops will get you? Cops were our biggest fans. It's weird because you think that they would, but they saw the same characters that we portrayed in the movies and in the records every day, and they saw the humor in it. So cops really liked us, and I like cops too. When they're not too bad, they're cool, but it was a tough neighborhood, and that when I go, there was a shooting that happened right outside my bedroom window when I was 7 years old. My dad got awakened in the middle of the night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, by a burglar alarm in the barber shop next door. And so he woke up and looked, and there was a guy in there, and told my mother, "Call the police, tell them I'm going out to investigate, and be sure to tell them that I'm the guy wearing the white t-shirt and the khaki pants." They're really important, And so, and there's this little alleyway between our duplex and the barber shop. Over the years, I've asked my dad repeatedly about this incident because generally cops don't like to talk about any traumatic situation, but I asked him over the years, and every time I asked him, I get a little bit of a clearer insight as to what happened that night. And according to him, he pulled the guy out of the barber shop, told him, turned him around, frisked him, found 2 straight razors he had stolen from the barber shop, and turned him around. And it had been raining that night, so it was all wet. There was an umbrella that the guy had brought, and the guy asked him, "Well, what are you going to do with me?" My dad said, "Just going to hold you here for the police." And you could hear him coming down the street, the sirens were on, and the guy looked around and says, "I'm not going back to prison," and jumped my dad, boom, knocks the gun out of his hand, and boom, whoever got to that gun first was going to live. I know that for sure. And I'm in the back of it. It's happening this far from my window, and luckily my dad got to the ground first while this guy's beating him with his umbrella. Turned around and bam, fire. At the same time, the cops come rolling out of their patrol car on the street, and they heard a shot. They started firing, bam, 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 and this is happening this far outside of my window. It was just to give you a glimpse as to what that neighborhood was like, and how you grew up, especially as a little kid, your expectations. And you realize really quickly that people in those neighborhoods, why they die of heart attacks or blood pressure or stroke so early, because there was a lot of tension in those scenes, in those areas. Very soon after that, within about a year, we moved out of that neighborhood and moved to Granada Hills. So one day, everybody in the neighborhood was black, and then the next day, everybody was white. And I was always, they always said, "Well, what did you like, the black neighborhood or the white neighborhood better?" I said, I was always the littlest kid. In every class I went to until I graduated from high school, and due to my current NBA height, I was always the littlest kid. So the thing that scared me the most was everybody that was bigger. So it didn't matter if they were black or white; they were just always bigger. So when we moved out of South Central into Granada Hills, it was a whole different thing. Like I started going to Catholic school, and I love Catholic education. A lot of people don't like education. A lot of people do. I loved Catholic education, you know, because it was a nice liberal arts education, and they didn't put up with any bullshit. You know, corporal punishment, that was a deal. And so I learned to bloom in an academic sense. You know, I had this group of cousins, and we were all blue-collar, Chicano, working-class kids. My dad was a cop. My uncles were upholsterers, but we all the kids went to Catholic school, and we were academically advanced, and we challenged each other to, you know, learn more and more and more. And my cousin Louie, who was the oldest, would assign us different topics to learn about and to bring that information back to the group. And so Regine, my cousin Regine Castro, he said, "Okay, Regine, you're learning about Middle Eastern history, or Middle Age history. Middle Age, there we go." And Regine, my cousin, eventually went on to earn the first doctorate in Chicano Studies from Harvard University. So it was a fast stuff. Thank you very much. And so, you know, and he turned to me and said, "Cheech, you go learn about art." I didn't. The only thing I knew about art is when you went to church and you know, during mass, you're looking up at the ceiling and, wow, look at these guys in sheets, you know, and why are they barbecuing that guy? So that's what I thought about art, you know. So I went to the library, whatever town I was in, and I took out all the art books, you know. Okay, as many as they would let me take out that day, I took them all out, and I'm gonna fall off this thing. And I would take all the art books. That's how I learned about art. Okay, that's Picasso, and that's Cezanne, and that's Miro, and that's everybody else, you know. So that's how I learned. So by the time I got to the position where I had enough money to buy art, I knew all about it because I'd been studying it through books, and I went to museums, and that's how you have to see paintings. You have to go and see them live because it's a different experience than just looking at them in the book. In my new book here, Cheech is not my real name. Everybody can see. I write about that experience and how I discovered the love of painting. The gap in my knowledge was contemporary art. I didn't know anything about contemporary art. So I started going to galleries on the west side of LA, and that's where I discovered these Chicano painters. And when I first saw them, I go, these guys are really good. Why? Because I knew what good painting was, because I'd seen it all my life. How come they're not getting any shelf space? And why are, you know, so I was the perfect storm. I knew what the art was, I had money to buy it, and I had notoriety in order to spread the word. And so it began a 30-year love affair, and I'm still in the midst of it with Chicano art that I've been promoting all over, because it's the most original and probably the only authentic American school of art in the last 80 years. And it's getting more and more recognition as we go along, and more people are getting involved with it. But back to, so I got out of high school and went to, is that me? I'm on drums now. I got out of high school and went to college. I went to Cal State Northridge. It was called Valley State then. They didn't have enough money for the Northridge part, I think. So there was Valley State. And I was a straight A student, an altar boy, a choir boy. I won the religion award, and I was a cop. My dad was a cop, and I was straight and narrow, blah, blah, blah. Until one night I came home from work. I worked at a factory when I went to school, making airplane galleys. And I came home, and there was a party going on in my apartment. And there was always a party going on in my apartment. This one was a little more smoky than the other parties. And I didn't know what to, my roommate, Jerry Hyman, hands me a cigarette. It looked like a hand-rolled cigarette, and I go, he knew I didn't smoke, so what was this about? And so, it's a joint, man. What's a joint? It's reefer. Okay. Marijuana, pendejo. And I don't know what urged me to do this, but okay, I'm on my own, I'm off the leash, I'm a grown-ass man, you know. Took the joint, took a hit, no, you gotta keep it in, okay? But the third time that joint came around, I was high. And I remember the first thing I thought is, and what else have they been lying about? Because this isn't the experience that I was told by my dad was going to happen. I wasn't going to go crazy, and I wasn't going to be stealing out of my mother's purse to support my heroin habit the next day. And it started to really change my perspective. I was listening to the music that I heard 100 times. Hurry Man, live from the Village Gate. I heard this album a zillion times. It was live. And the first time I heard, oh, it's live. There's people in the cafe or in the club, and they're ordering drinks, and they're moving chairs, and they're talking to each other. It was like coming into a whole other realm of perspective. You know, like, wow, this is, because I'm the oldest baby boomer. The baby boomer year started with me. And everything that was going to happen to me was going to happen to everybody else behind me first. And so I was in the front of this big wave, and like, wow, this is cool. People have asked me, what are the two biggest influences on your education? And I said, well, Catholic education and dope. You know? One's the discipline and one undoes the discipline, you know? And that was a great way to grow up, because you got to look at different things from different aspects, you know? And at the same time, at the end of my college career, the very last year was a big tumultuous year in American politics. The Vietnam War was really raging, and the draft was instituted, and traditionally the draft drives a wedge between any population that is foisted upon. And this particular Vietnam War was causing a lot of controversy, because it wasn't even a war; it was a police action, undeclared, and for some vague reason, there was nobody that had bombed our Twin Towers or dropped bombs on Pearl Harbor or invaded Long Beach, you know. And what are we doing over this? So all my generation of guys started to ask that same question. What is this? What is, no, just shut up and go, you know? And so we started talking back to the government, and they didn't want to hear that, you know? So my school, Cal State Northridge, had a string of speakers, very provocative speakers. Eldridge Cleaver came to town, Reyes Tiarina, Timothy Leary, who was a big buddy of mine throughout the years. But there's this one guy, David Harris, came to campus, and he was the leader of the draft resistance movement. And the draft resistance philosophy was, in order to stop this illegal police action, don't participate in the draft. If you're 18, don't sign up. If you've signed up and called for physical, don't show up for physical. If they draft you, don't show up for the indoctrination introduction. And we'll clog this system and stop that line of bodies that they're sending over there to be cannon fodder. And it started to work. So the government was after us, especially the people that I was involved in, because we were very active. We demonstrated at the draft board. We did all kinds of propaganda. We burned our draft cards. I didn't burn my draft card. I had Muhammad Ali sign it. He did. Muhammad Ali signed my draft card. Yeah, like, he was a single. He gave a talk at an anti-work thing at Century City. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but it was a big deal. And he had just won the heavyweight championship. He had beat Sonny Liston and identified himself as a Muslim at the same time. And so it caused all kinds of shit, you know. And he came to this demonstration to talk, and he was the singularly most impressive physical human being I'd ever seen. He's a very big guy. He's like almost 6'5", 6'4", so, and V-shaped, and really handsome and young, and he had a great sense of humor, and he was, I don't know if I've ever met a more charismatic person. He was on top of the back of a state bench truck, and he's railing against the war, and at the end he started signing autographs. I took out my draft card, gave it to him. M. Ali, I'm with you if you with me, you know? What a poet, you know? And so so I handed in my draft card. It was just what's the word I'm struggling for? It was a representation that we weren't recognizing the government's authority over us, and we were going to sit down, we're going to stop this war. And so my draft card was given to David Harris, and he had just married Joan Baez that time, and she was the world's famous folk singer at the time. And it was put on a collage that traveled with them on their speaking tour across the U.S. And it was on the cover of Newsweek magazine. And if you look really closely, you can see my little draft card right in the corner, M. Ali. So it's funny how things work out, you know, because people ask me, well, how do you manage to do this and that and the other? It's staying centered. That's been my philosophy, to do something that centers you, whether it's transcendental meditation, which I've done since I was 19 and did it this morning. Tai Chi, which I learned later on, really allowed me to focus and to extend my concentration. That's when I became an actor. Or what I discovered that last semester in college, pottery. You know that last semester that you have to take all the classes you've been putting off for 4 years? You know, economics 101, sociology, blah, blah, blah. And so I had a little empty spot in my slot, and there's this really cute girl that I had my eye on. And she goes, well, what are you taking? I said, I'm taking this. She goes, what are you taking? She goes, I'm going to take pottery. You should take it with me. There's one more spot left. You know? I think I could do that. Pottery, you know? And so I took this pottery class. And from the moment that I centered my first lump of clay, another centering technique. And it was when you get a lump of clay on center, it changes your body. It changes the current that runs through your body, and it's the most centering technique. And when I did it, that happened, but all my recessive Mexican genes came jumping out like, pottery, come on, Holmes. We got orders, you gotta make 20 cups, let's go, you know. And because I always knew I was an artist of some kind, but I couldn't paint or draw but I always knew I was an artist. I was an artist. When I went to Trinity Street School. I don't know if anybody's here. Yeah! Where are you? Let me see you. All right. You weren't in my class though. You can go. Trinity Street School, and I was in first grade, and we got taken on a field trip. Yeah, and in my school, you just walk down the block. That was a field trip. But down the block was the Grand Central Market. And so we were taken en masse to the Grand Central Market. And it was like everything that grows on earth was in the Grand Central Market. And as a little kid, you went, wow, this is the coolest thing I ever saw in my life. So we got back to class, and the teacher took out the good paper and the good crayons, and she asked everybody to draw a picture of what their favorite thing was in the Grand Central Market. So for me, it was these big banana squashes. They were way bigger than I was, you know. So got my yellow and orange crayon, big banana squashes, and a little stick figure me, you know. And I was really proud of it. The teacher's coming around, commenting on everybody's work, and she picked up my paper and go, well, you'll never be an artist. Okay, you know, I just kind of walked away. My little artistic heart died in some dark corner. And ironically, I turned out to be a world-renowned art collector, you know. So die, bitch. You know what I mean? You know, because it's funny how things work out, you know. And so that last semester, because of my political activities, the law, the FBI was after me, and the guy that was running the draft, General Hershey, I don't know if anybody remembers that era, the General Hershey, he made a directive that anybody who burned the draft card, protested at the draft induction center, or doing any of the things that I had done, all those, you know, that they would be immediately reclassified 1A, drafted, and sent to the front lines of Vietnam. That was his fix. Bullshit, that's not, you know, and everybody knew it was an egregious First Amendment violation. But as you're arguing the case, they started sending the leaders of the draft resistance movement to 8 years in Leavenworth. And I go, this is not, I'm gonna, even if I totally innocent, which I was, I'm gonna spend at least 3 or 4 years in Leavenworth while the case winds through the court. At the same time, my pottery teacher, who knew my situation, said, you know, I have this ex-student who started a pottery up in Canada. Maybe he needs an assistant. So that was my next move. I had $50 to my name. I got on the dog and rode it up to Calgary, you know. And I thought it was going to be, you know, Sergeant Preston and Eskimos, and it looked like Bakersfield. You know what I mean? Like, it was an oil and cattle town. It was just northern Montana, you know. And so I started making pottery and eventually I ended up being assistant to this very famous potter who lived in the mountains and the foothills of the Rockies. And I made pottery day and night for hours and hours and hours a day. And I lived this really pristine Japanese apprentice existence. I chopped wood, got raw water from the river every day, made clay, wedged clay, stored clay, trimmed clay, threw clay every day, you know. And it was the purest time of my life. It was like, wow, he was a real avid hunter, and we were living. I'll tell you how remote this this place was. You had to go to town to go hunting, you know. But he shot bears and moose and deer and elk and antelope, and so I was right from here. I was right from here. I had a little velour coat on. You know. It was the coldest winter in 80 years when I got to Calgary. The high during the month of January was 20 below. That was the high. 20, 40 for a couple weeks. 50. One night it got down to 75 below. And it was just, but it's all here in my green book. Green book. I look under the freezer, Mexican freezing his ass off in Calgary. And so I did that. Eventually I show business, because I'd always been a singer all my life. I made my first record when I was 5 years old. I was this little kid that could sing in tune. Squeaky, but in tune. And so I had a friend, my mother had a friend who had this little record company in the neighborhood, and I sang Little Mexican, Amorcito corazón, no tengo tentación, you know. And so I was this little anomaly. So eventually, and then I was in bands and all through high school, and especially I learned to play guitar during the folk scare of the mid-60s. And so show business and music started calling me back, and so I made it up to, I made it up to Banff. Anybody been to Banff? It's one of the most beautiful spots on earth. And I went up there to cool it for a little while. The stage put together a tour for me to play in the Northwest Territories. Couldn't wait. And I learned how to ski for the first time. You know, they didn't have a lot of snow in South Central, so I didn't. Skiing was kind of out of it. So they got me on skis, my roommates, and showed me the snowplow and pushed me off. I could ski like a bitch, man. I just couldn't stop. Hit a trench, went up in the air, came down and broke my leg in half. Like that, a compound fracture. Like, I looked up and go, that's a compound fracture, because it can't get into that position without it being a compound fracture. So I was in the hospital for a month and a big cast. And so eventually, after I was hobbling around, my roommate says, well, why don't you come back to ski season? Or why don't you come back to Vancouver with me, where I'm from, and we'll do something, you know? We'll get a job. I said, all right. So I went there, and I started writing for this rock and roll magazine called Poppin'. It was like it was trying to be Rolling Stone, but it was just Poppin', you know? Right? And so the editor of the magazine, named Ihor Todoruk, probably haven't heard that name in a long time, Ukrainian guy, said, there's this guy I want you to meet. And he's doing this really weird thing down in Chinatown. Okay, well he's running an improv theater in a topless bar. So right away I'm intrigued, you know. And so I go down and he introduces me to this guy named Tommy Chong. Good. And we both had the same thought when we saw each other. What the hell are you? Because he's half Chinese, half English Irish, with long hair, scraggly beard, leather pants, a blue nylon wife beater with a big eagle tattoo, and that one wing is bigger than the other, and not on purpose, you know. And he looked at me the same way, like, he had never seen a Chicano before. What are you? And so what happened is Tommy was a musician, always. From the time he was little, and his band got signed to Motown, and he had this big hit record that he wrote called Does Your Mama Know About Me? It became a standard, everybody recorded. Diana Ross and the Supremes, Stephanie Mills, Jermaine Jackson, the Harlettes, and it was a big standard. And he was famous in Calgary, you know. It's like being famous in Rhode Island, you know. But he had on the road, he had seen improvisational theater. He'd seen Second City in Chicago. He had seen the Committee in Los Angeles or San Francisco, and he decided that that's what he wanted to do. He had never spoke on stage before. He was a guitar player. Ooh, ah, ee, ah, that's it. But he was going to be an improv actor. This was Vancouver's first topless bar, you know, and so he grabbed the girls together and says, okay, you're not strippers anymore. You're actresses. Oh, okay. You still have to take off your clothes, but you get paid less. Okay. And so we started doing this improv in a topless bar with naked dancers that got naked eventually, you know. Because Tommy told me that when the girls first started coming into work, they were like little young hippies. They were bell bottoms and hip huggers and crop tops. They looked great, you know. And when they got in their stripper gear, pasties and sequin pants, and nobody looked at them. They didn't pay any attention to them because it was a tough bar. I mean, this was Junkieville, Winoville, Skid Row, Chinatown, Vancouver. Still to this day, it's the worst part of the city. And so it was a tough, you know, loggers, bikers, a lot of prostitutes. That was their office, and pimps and thugs, and you know, guys just getting out of jail. So it was a tough bar, and Tommy started this improv company in the topless bar without telling anybody. You know, it wasn't a big sign tomorrow, you know, improv. No. The first act he sent out was a mime artist in a topless bar. You know, white face and beret and running against the wind. And the drunk says, look at him, right? And then we started doing this thing, and the girls would come out. We'd have some brief little scenario, you know, and eventually they would start taking off their clothes. And you could hear a pin drop in there. Before, where nobody was watching, now everybody, man and woman, was like glued on the stage. And what I found out that we were doing, or I came to realize what we were doing, is we were doing hippie burlesque. It was classic burlesque. Strippers and comedians, you know, in this new strippers and comedians with improv theater. So we did that every 4 hours a night, 6 nights a week for 9 months. I think the troupe stayed together. And then at one point, all the troops said, well, we got to go to the hills to get our heads together. I had been to the hills. My head was together. My wallet wasn't together, you know, so we had to figure out a way to make a living at this. So Tommy said, well, you're a singer, I'm a guitar player, let's form a band, and we'll do skits, and we'll have this band, and it'll be great. So okay, so we got a band together. And so where did we play? The first gig we had was the Battle of the Bands in Vancouver at Georgia Gardens. And it was in the day, Led Zeppelin days, and all the bands were doing that kind of, and so we had the band set up, and then we started our skits. Now, the audience that was in this auditorium were us. Those people were us, but they would have never have come down to the Shanghai Junkyard before, never, ever in a million years, to see us, because dude, I'm not gonna go down there and take my life in my hands. And it was tough. People used to try to get on stage and beat us up all the time. Hey, what the fuck? I want to see some tits. I said, no. The only thing that saved us was Tommy's brother Stan, who was, well, not a killer, but you could die, you know. And I'll tell you, one time Stan was complaining. He said, my knuckle hurts. And I kept complaining about it all day until my knuckle hurts. And so I said, well, here, stop this. Here's $20, go see the doctor. So I went to see the doctor, and the doctor said, well, here's your problem here, Mr. Chong. You have a tooth embedded in your knuckle. That's what kind of club it was, right? And so after the trip broke up, we did the Battle of the Bands, and we won the Battle of the Bands without playing a note. We just kept doing these skits, and you can see the people coming from all over the Gardens Auditorium, and you can see them coming because they wanted to get up to the front of the stage to hear what we were doing because they'd never seen anything like this. And this was not even naked girls, you know. We would try to get naked for them, but I don't know, they weren't having it. And we won the Battle of the Bands, so we figured, well, wow, we were so excited on the way home. We were driving home, and in Vancouver it rains every day. I mean, it just rains every day. And we were in Tommy's father's car. And the thing you have to have when it rains, you have to have white windshield wipers. We had them, it just didn't work, you know. And so Tommy had straightened out this wire coat hanger like that, and it went out of the window on the thing, attached to the windshield wiper, and that's how he worked it while he drove. And that's what we were talking about. Yeah, man, we killed it there. We're gonna be big, yeah. We're gonna get windshield wipers and work, everything. You know? And we're trying to figure out a name for our act because we were called the City Works before them, and now it was just the two of us. And well, Richard and Tommy. Richard, that's my name. Richard and Tommy. Yeah, Tommy and Richard. Marin and Chong. No, Chong and. So Tommy said, "Do you have a nickname?" Well, Cheech is my nickname in my family. It's short for Cheech Marin. Because when I came home from the hospital, I was a day or two old. You know, the kids are little babies are shriveled up like that. And my Uncle Bono looked in the crib and said, "Ay, parece un chicharrón." You know, looks just like a little chicharrón, all curled up. You know? And so that was my family name. And so he says, your nickname is Cheech? Yeah. Cheech and Chong. And it made sense musically. It scanned. Cheech and Chong. Chong and Cheech. It was out of rhythm. Because that's how we approached our comedy, because we were musicians. It had to make sense musically. We heard the cadence of it. And we knew when to come in, when to stay out, when to sing harmony, when to sing lead, and that was the thing that informed us all the time, you know. And so we came to LA and we used to play mostly black clubs when we came back to LA. And there's a big circuit of black clubs. I don't know if it's existent now, but in those days there was a big circuit of black clubs and nightclubs in LA. The York Room, the Parisian Room, Mavericks Flats, the Climax Club. But at the top of the chain was PJ's in Hollywood. It became the Starwood, and now it's a Russian delicatessen. So, you know. But we played the PJ's, and we were the house band and opened for everybody that came in. Carmen McRae, Edwin Starr, Ray Charles, The Impressions, Little Anthony the Imperials, The Whispers. Marvin Gaye got up one night when the Isley Brothers were playing and sang his new song, hadn't even been released yet, What's Going On. And so it was like in that era, man, it's like, wow. And during the week, we would play at the white clubs that didn't pay any money. You got exposure. You could die from exposure, you know? I've been exposed enough, you know? I need me some money. And so we would do this thing on Monday nights at the Troubadour, and it's called Hoot Night. Like Hoot Night, yeah, we're supposed to get up and have a Hoot Night. And their policy was that the first 6 acts that were there when the box office opened at 6 o'clock would go on that night in reverse order. So the first ones that were there got to go on 6th, which actually was a good spot because everybody was in, they'd ordered a drink, they, you know, maybe ordered a second drink, they were ready to see a show. And we were number 6, we were number 1 in line every single time because we got there at 9 o'clock in the morning and sat there on the sidewalk in front of the Troubadour till it opened at 6. Every day because it was all focused on how to make this act work, how to write stuff, and how to harmonize with each other, and how to make sense of things that we saw going back and forth in front of us on the street. And I learned in my poppin' days when I was in Vancouver, I learned about what an artist does because I was supposed to go out to do interviews with different stars that came to town. The first one was Little Richard. That was a wild one. And then the second one was Richard Pryor. And I was supposed to go out and I went and saw it. And he was just converting from being, you know, kind of a standard comedian to being the voice, really, the comic voice of Black America and America in general. And I saw his show and he says, come over to the hotel tomorrow morning and I'll do a thing there. Okay. Walked in, knocked on his hotel. A German girl answered it, kind of scantily clothed, and Richard Pryor's in bed there, naked, and he had covered up a little bit. And yeah, come on, man, come on, sit right here. So I sat next to his bed and did this interview with him naked in bed. Okay, and I said, well, what is so important about what Richard Pryor does? And he said, it's not what Richard Pryor does. It's what Richard Pryor sees. And it made a huge impression on me. And that's what an artist does. He sees stuff and translates it through his art in order for you to see it at the same time. So it always stuck with me. So when Tom and I were making up all this material, it's what we saw on the streets around us, and we gathered from that. So we played all over LA until one night at the Troubadour, we were seen by this man named Lou Adler, who was the world's biggest record producer at the time. Hey, Lou Adler. He had Sam Cooke, Johnny Rivers, the Mamas and Papas, Monterey Pop, Spirit, and he was just about to release this record by a girl named Carole King called Tapestry, which became, by a factor of 15, the biggest record ever sold. And it was like, we were right in that thing, and so he called us into his office, and we looked, and there's gold records everywhere, all over the walls, on the ceiling, and on the floor, laying against them. And we looked at, wow. And he said, well, what do you guys want to do? Make a record. Oh yeah, what kind? Gold. Seems to be what you make. We like to make a gold record. So I said, because we didn't know how to do that. You know, how do we translate what we do on stage, which was totally visual, to something you could only hear, which was the record. So we learned that you had to do stuff that sounded funny, not something that you could make a face and everybody would get it. You know, because all the comedians, our contemporaries at that time, their records were recording of their live act. Richard Pryor, Lily Tomlin, George Carlin, Steve Martin, all those guys. It was a live recording of their act. We went into the studio and started creating these little scenes because we came out of improv acting, you know. So we didn't really need an audience. It was the days of first we started off, it was 4-track. That was a big deal. Then very soon 8-track, 1632. So we had all these tracks to fill up, and we could make these scenes, and we did it in improv in front of the microphones every day in the studio. You know, because of our training, okay, I'm this guy, and Tommy, you're that guy, and this is the situation, go. And we just started, you know, because it was just 2 guys with 2 microphones in a little mix-down room. It wasn't that, you know, you didn't have to get a huge sound truck, or, you know. So we started doing this. We started crafting these little scenes and adding atmosphere, background, and music and other noises, and all of a sudden we released the album, and it became a big hit because of the rise of FM radio at the same time. They wanted something different than AM, yummy, 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 I got love in my tummy, you know, like, no, we want to have dope in my tummy or something. And so it started spreading out all over the country, and we were the vanguards of it, you know. And so we started going on, and it exploded. The record exploded throughout the country, man. We were very quickly went from clubs to bigger clubs to opening for big acts like Alice Cooper and Bread and the Allman Brothers. We even opened up for the Rolling Stones one night. You were there? Did you take my jacket? Because I'm missing a jacket. We're about the same size. Santana. Bill read Santana, Cheech and Chong, and the Rolling Stones. Yeah. That's good. It was cool, you know. And we didn't really think about it that much at the time, you know, because we were always on the road. By this time we had been used to playing big auditoriums like that, but we just kept playing. Every year we get nominated for a Grammy for our albums, and it didn't kind of register with us because we were always working. We worked over 300 days a year, every year, for 6, 7, 8 years, man. So out there, boom, boom, boom. So finally we came to the end of that, and we decided, what do other common... Yes, ma'am? Oh, 1 minute, okay. We're almost there. I can feel it. We did what all great comedy acts do. We made a movie. You know, okay, how do we make a movie? I don't know. How do you make a record? Same way, I guess. So we finally figured it out how we were gonna do that. But then, well, you have to have a first act, a second act, a third act. We didn't know what's an act, you know. We didn't know. We only knew that we were gonna be funny in front of a camera. That was our technique. And because we didn't, well, there's not much plot here. Well, no, there is a plot. Up in Smoke has a plot. And this is the plot. 2 guys meet, they want to form a band, but first they need to find a joint. Therein lies your plot. And that was much funnier, what they went through to find this joint, than any plot you could imagine. So it was a day in the life of these 2 guys, you know, and that's what was the template for all our movies. Eventually we made a lot of movies that were very successful. Push came to shove with some guy that you're in the same room with 24 hours a day for 17 years, and we decided, hey, you want to do your thing, I want to do my thing, good luck. And we separated and started going. And that's when I started on my own career with Born in East LA. It's probably the greatest movie ever made. That's just me. But anyways, they were cutting up. Before we got one, anybody got any questions? I'll answer. Yes, sir, right in front. Tommy was on Dancing with the Stars, and I'm thinking, am I thinking to do that? Not in your life. He was the oldest guy to get that far on Dancing with the Stars. I have bad knees. I can't dance, and they beat him to death. I know. I mean, those contestants, it looks all fun and game and sequins and thongs and everything, but they rehearsed. I can't remember 5, 6 hours every day, because we were on the road all the time. When he was competing, they would send the girl out. There was that with a crew. Meet us in the city, get off the plane, go to a studio, dance all day, come and do the show, get on another plane, fly to the next city early so they could do the same thing. And this guy is 150 years old, you know, and like, poor guy. And at the end, he just went, his choreography, he sat in the seat and he danced around him, you know, because, but no, I'm not thinking of doing that ever. Yes, sir.
Question in the front.
Chong.
Your collection of Chicano art, amazing collection. Do you show it as a whole, and where can we go see it?
I've been showing it in different, my Chicano art collection. I don't know if I have the biggest collection, but I have the best. How it? What? Oh, it's on, the latest part of it is Papel Chicano 2, works on paper from the collection. It's at Riverside Art Museum until the May 7th. Anybody been to Riverside? Cool place, huh? Stay tuned. Stay tuned for Riverside. Yes, sir.
Question up front to your right.
Did you ever meet Paul Rubens?
Yeah, I did. Pee Wee Herman. Everybody know Pee Wee Herman? Well, what we did when we first started making movies is, well, how are you going to get these actors? Because we improvised everything, but we knew what we were doing, and like we made a movie, handed them a 3-page script, and the studio financed it, and it wasn't even scenes, it was just names of scenes we wanted to do. Oh, okay, well, it'll be there 2 days, you know, guys figure it out. And because we weren't making a blueprint for somebody else to make this. We knew what we were doing, so this is just a guide for us to make our own movie. So, but you're gonna have other actors in it, so how do you do that? So we used to look around for other improv actors, and the best improv actors in LA at that time was this brand new theater that started up called the Groundlings. And the first year of the Groundlings had Paul Rubens, Edie McClure, John Paragon, what's his name? Phil Hartman, Elvira, Cassandra Peterson. They were all in the troupe at the same time. It's like, okay, all you guys are now in our movie, and you take those characters you've been doing, and we'll put here's a situation for that character. And that's what we did all the way along. We never wrote them a script. Here's the idea. You got the character. Do this there, and that's how we made our movies. Because you can capture in that way a spontaneity that you cannot possibly capture in a written word. Okay, and I'm gonna have to read this and memorize it and rehearse it and read it again and read it again. That method in records and that method on film, you capture something you can't capture any other way. The spontaneity. I mean, the scenes will go on forever, but that's, I think, what made them watchable for a long time, is that we filmed stuff mainly in masters, you know, just one shot. We didn't know about close-up, you know. That's how dumb we were. But the thing is, watching a comedy, especially a comedy in a master, is you get to decide when it's funny. They don't cut to punchline, you know, and you see all this unfolding. So what happens is the comedy seeps into you, not just it's jammed into you, you know? And that's a big difference. That's why these movies can be watched over and over, because like the 10th time you see Up in Smoke, you'll find some, oh, hey, give me a cookie. And that line, I've heard that line a zillion times, man. They have a little, but they discover them, and they're part of that process. You know, it's not jammed down your throat.
I think we have time for